Fallout New Vegas' 4 DLCs all sort of do their own thing. Dead Money is more about survival than anything else, and Honest Hearts plays it safe. Lonesome Road ends the story of Courier 6, but Old World Blues is the weird one. So why not ask a weird question? Can you beat Fallout New Vegas' Old World Blues DLC without taking any damage? The setup for this challenge is the same as the setup for my previous New Vegas DLC no damage playthroughs. I'm going into Old World Blues with a character that's as generic as possible. Not even a jack of all trades, I'm like a Bill or George of all trades. Special points are distributed somewhat evenly. I picked speech, guns, and lockpick as my tag skills, chose skilled, which gives +5 to all skills, at the cost of 10% reduction in experience earned, and trigger discipline, which makes weapons 20% more accurate, but reduces their fire rate by 20% as my traits. Next came leveling, because New Vegas suggests that you be at level 15 or higher when you start Old World Blues. I used console commands to level myself up to level 15. As I leveled up, I evenly distributed my skill points across all skills until all skills were at 40, thanks to both the skilled trait and the educated perk. Then I dumped the last 5 points into speech. The only worthwhile perks I chose along the way were educated, rapid reload, and comprehension. The other perks relate to stim packs and other healing methods or companions, so they don't come into play in any way. Regarding equipment, I'm only using what I get at the start of the game: a 9mm pistol, binoculars, a broad machete, a mercenary's grenade rifle, a sturdy caravan shotgun, 10 throwing spears, and a weathered 10mm pistol. Armor is irrelevant, since I won't be wearing armor for most of the run, and healing items aren't worth their weight in shit. I encountered nothing on my way to the Mojave Drive-In, forgot my popcorn but started the movie anyway, got abducted, and woke up at Big Empty without any pants. It was here that I used console commands to set my max health to 1, so that any damage of any kind kills me and automatically reloads my most recent save, forcing me to get through any given scenario without taking any damage. 400 words in, and now the run finally begins. Before I did anything else, I ransacked the sink to find anything useful, which wasn't all that much to be honest. Then I entered the think tank and started what could very well be the longest single instance of dialogue in all of New Vegas. I sped through some of it because I already had a general idea of what Doctor Klein and his fellow think tanks were talking about, but it was still almost 13 minutes. Here's a quick version for anyone watching this for the story. I fulfilled my prophecy of naming myself Lobotomite by getting a lobotomy and becoming a lobotomite. The glorified Pez dispensers lost my brain during the lobotomy. I can't leave until I get it back. There's some sort of a civil war going on, and I need to pick up a few pieces of equipment. I went outside for the first time since the last time, saw a lobotomite, and got into combat for the first time. As soon as I took aim with VATS, I knew this entire thing was gonna suck. Normal headshots with a 10mm pistol did jack shit. According to the Fallout wiki, lobotomites start out at level 25, which would explain why this one in particular would have been difficult to kill if it weren't for the critical shot. I picked up one of my favorite melee weapons in all of New Vegas, a proton axe, off his corpse. Unfortunately, if an enemy is within melee range, I'm pretty much fucked, so I'm not going to get much of a chance to use it anytime soon. It's not all bad though. I've got a waypoint and I know what direction to go, bronze linings and the whatnot. Before I made any observable progress, I angered 2 more lobotomites, one of which had a firearm, a shotgun to be more specific. If you happen to know what a shotgun is, you probably have a solid understanding of why a lobotomite with one is not a situation you'd want to find yourself in. All it takes is one pellet hitting me, and it's hello loading screen. I lured them behind a box and blew both their heads off with my own shotgun, stumbled across a Night Stalker because Big Empty is a fucking nightmare of a place, then found a cyberdog that was not at all friendly, and entered X8 Central Facility to find my first object. It was inside X8 that I found my new best friend, the Sonic Emitter. It took out a Mr. Orderly Mark III in just 2 shots. I did some mad science shit and created the perfect amalgamation of man and machine, that sadly only lived about as long as my first kid, and pressed onward deeper into the facility. The time had come to prove my worth to America by dispelling of communist children from the fake school. The institutional data retrieval test is now underway. Basically, I just need to get 3 student records from 3 different locations and determine which one needs to be put to death. A few obstacles are in my way. The first are hull monitors. They might as well be the Eye of Sauron, because they kill me damn near as soon as they see me. The cyber dogs are much more worrisome though. They're as fast as they are not dogs. The sonic emitter is the best weapon at my disposal in dealing with robots, but even it takes several shots to kill one dog. I eventually did find a concept that worked. Shoot a dog, close door, doggy run away, open door, shoot again. Who knew that all it took to hold back the armies of hell was a cheap wooden door? There were also a few lobotomites roaming the halls, but ones with melee weapons aren't much to be concerned about. A caravan shotgun can handle them quickly enough. As I made my way through the school, I leveled up, dumped the points into speech and guns, picked Here and Now as my perk to level up again, and dumped more points into those two skills. I eventually found all 3 records, fought a few protectrons, and left the facility in search of the X2 transmitter antenna array. There were 2 cyber dogs waiting outside, one of which managed to follow me onto a roof of a collapsed building. Then, to the right of the building were 2 Night Stalkers. I evaded them by seeking shelter on a walkway while they got stuck behind a pipe. I moved to the right side of the X8 building, hoping to avoid the creatures by going that way, but there were 3 lobotomites over there. 2 of them had melee weapons, but 1 had a firearm. Then, one of the cyber dogs found me when I got off the truck I'd been hiding on. At this point, I wanted this DLC to get fucked to death by a giant sandpaper dildo. I eventually got behind the building and ran off behind the pylons to get safely teleported back to the think tank. I actually had no idea what would happen. I figured having seizures and blood squirting from my ears couldn't be any worse than being eaten alive by robotic carnivore bitches. After I caught my breath in the sink, I began making my way to the X2 antenna thing. I spent several lives trying to kill a lobotomite over yonder, pressed onward, made it to the cuckoo's nest, and got myself good and fucked. I quick-saved at just about the worst possible time. The next 20 minutes or so were just awful. The first problem came from a lobotomite with a handgun and surprising accuracy. I probably died a dozen times while trying to run away or kill him. After I killed him, I went back up to the cuckoo's nest, but I'd drawn the attention of more lobotomites who wanted to skin me and turn me into a ceremonial hammock. I tried to take refuge inside a cave, but test subject 1 made sure that didn't happen. Back outside, I managed to kill 2 lobotomites after dying several times. If you thought things couldn't get any worse, you haven't been paying attention. 4 more lobotomites descended upon me. 2 from the left, 2 from the right. I still thank God to this day, even though today's June 21st and this happened on June 20th, that I had a grenade launcher. I used it and a 10mm pistol to kill the lot of them. Then, once again, things got even worse. 3 Y-17 trauma override harnesses started shooting from just beyond those pipes over there. They're tougher than lobotomites and have much more advanced weaponry. I did significant damage to one of them with a grenade launcher. Then another lobotomite showed up on the right, and I retreated behind a rock. I killed both creatures sauntering towards me, tried to loot the corpses, but the other 2 Y-17s had figured out how to get near me. I grenade launched the absolute shit out of them both. Tried again to loot all the corpses I'd created, decided it wasn't worth it, ran down the hill, arrived at the X2 facility, saw even more Y-17s near it, and finally entered a building where I was relatively safe. The few robots inside could be dealt with easily enough with the sonic emitter. I got up to the satellite, uploaded the schematics, and watched as Dr. Mobius sent a small army of robo-scorpions to end me. I took out the 2 Y-17s with launched grenades, retreated inside the building, and had several robo-scorpions to contend with. Just like the lobotomites, there are 2 kinds of robo-scorpions, generally speaking. There are those that can fire energy projectiles, and those that can't. The ones that fire energy are a real bother. The others can be avoided by running away most of the time. I exited the building, did aforementioned running away, went back to the sink to sell some stuff to the SCIU, had to repair a few things, and spent a while talking to all of the think tanks in the think tank. There are several quests that can be started and completed without ever leaving the think tank. I'd tell you what they were, but I wasn't really paying all that much attention. I was more concerned with clicking through every speech option I had to pass as many skill checks as possible and complete the quests that I could. I completed a few of them and left to discover Higgs Village, the former home of Gabe, the former dog. I once again got into an annoying fight with a lobotomite, this time with me using a plasma rifle that obscures most of my vision. I arrived in Higgs Village and took my sweet time going through all of the houses to find what I could. The only things worth mentioning were the few sonic emitter upgrades I found, Gabe's bowl, the sink personalities, and the teddy bear house. After about 20 minutes of peaceful ransacking, I confronted the super ego. It was the toughest thing I've fought thus far, which isn't surprising given its name, and the fact that it's a fucking level 50 robo-brain. This is probably the closest I'll ever get to beating Will Wheaton to death. With the super ego dead, I went back to the sink and spent several wonderful minutes listening to the book shoot talk about eradicating sedition.
Wait a moment. Pencil processors offline? Pencil processors offline? Apologies, citizen. It seems traitors have absconded with that module.
I upgraded my sonic emitter and was off to the X-12 research facility. I got inside, found out it was a waste of my time, and decided to go to the much bigger and much more research facility X-13 Research Facility Center. What? I think I just had a stroke. Inside X-13, I recovered all the pieces necessary to create the Stealth Suit Mark II. With the suit wrapped around my fragile body, I could begin the stealth test, which involved sneaking around until I recovered a special document. The test is failed if you're spotted. There are several robotic entities roaming around the halls of the testing grounds, most of which can be taken out with one shot from my sonic emitter thanks to sneak attacks. I found the X-13 document, leveled up, upped my speech skill to 75 and gun skill to 70, and listened to Dr. Mobius ramble on about his robo-scorpions again. He sent quite a few of them inside the building after me once he realized I'd stolen the stealth suit. It was here I realized that robo-scorpions explode when they die, which can cause me to die if I don't back away enough. Fighting my way out of the testing facility wasn't all that bad. The smaller scorpions are usually the ones that are restricted to melee attacks, which makes killing them from a distance not the hardest thing in the world. The bigger ones are tougher, faster, and have the capacity to kill me from afar. Luckily, they're like the fake dogs from earlier in that they can't open doors either. I hid behind a terminal to kill another robo-scorpion, eventually escaped the X-13 facility, was greeted outside by several more robo-scorpions, retreated behind the building while somehow managing to not get shot, ran by the pylons again, and went back to the X-8 Research Center to begin the residential Cyberdog guard test. It turned out to be less of a test and more of an Old Yeller situation that resulted in me putting Old Gabe down for good. He was surprisingly not difficult to kill, though he certainly looked surprised after he died. Mobius sent more robo-scorpions. I spent a considerable amount of time killing them all, then took more attempts than I'd care to admit, killing the few more scorpions inside the facility proper, leveled up to level 20, parkoured on some pipes, and returned to the think tank to tell Doctor Klein that I'd found all the required components. The preparations have been successfully prepared, and I could finally travel to the Forbidden Zone to confront Dr. Mobius. Getting inside the Forbidden Zone, though, that was tricky. There were several robo-scorpions in the area that needed to be handled before I could get inside. The shit part is that they're all the big shooty variety. It took me over 10 minutes to eventually get past them. Part of that time was spent dealing with an additional 2 robo-scorpions that were closer to the entrance of the little canyon area. What I eventually did was come down off my mountain and hide behind an overturned train car and pop out from behind it to take a shot or two at the robo-scorpions. Earlier, I'd absconded from one of the facilities with 2 pulse grenades that were far less effective than I'd hoped. But in time, I made it beyond the scorpions and entered the giant door. It was here that Mobius revealed his secret weapon, the X-42 Giant Robo-Scorpion. This is supposed to be the final boss of Old World Blues. And guess what? The theory that the harder the game is, the easier the final boss will be applies to this DLC as well as it does anything else. The X-42 is tough in the sense that it takes a long time to kill, what with its 1500 hit points, which is more than double that of the Super Ego. I died but one time to the giant scorpion, because I'd found a spot that allowed me to attack it without it being able to attack me back. As its health dwindled, it got closer and was more of a threat, but I still killed it all the same. When it finally died, I looked around the arena for anything useful, didn't find much aside from some ammo, entered Mobius's lair, spoke to him and felt an odd connection to him, probably because of how he sometimes uses the wrong words, like how he says raisins instead of reasons. He agreed to let me take my brain back if I wanted it. I spent several minutes talking to myself about whether I should go with me back to the think tank. It took some convincing, but I got me to go with me after promising myself that I'd take better care of me. And with me and myself reunited, I killed Mobius. And with the pacification field no longer having any effect on me, I went back to the think tank to deal with the think tanks. I thought for a moment about whether I should confront them or just kill them immediately. The way I see it, if things go sideways, it'll be difficult to escape with all 5 robots trying to kill me. So I pulled out my trusty sonic tarantula and opened fire. It shouldn't have surprised me that they were all weak as shit. All but Doctor Klein went down in one shot. I died once in the process, after which I backed myself down the stairs, pulled out a laser gun I'd ripped out of Gabe's dead asshole, and shot from a distance. They had the same ranged attacks as cyber dogs, which have a limited range. From where I was, their attacks couldn't reach me. I killed all 5 think tanks, went through their quarters in search of anything useful, even though it wouldn't matter if I did find anything useful, left the think tank, and beat Fallout New Vegas' Old World Blues DLC without taking any damage. Before I end the video, you may be wondering about the same thing I was as I played through Old World Blues. After I'd beaten the DLC, I returned to the outer reaches of Big Mountain, activated God Mode via console commands, and ran out past the pylons to see what would happen. I was knocked out by the pylons and returned to the think tank. How disappointing. And that's going to do it for this video about whether or not you can beat Fallout New Vegas' Old World Blues DLC without taking any damage. If you enjoyed the video or learned anything, leave a like. Leave a dislike if you didn't enjoy the video or didn't learn anything. Join the Mitten Squad Discord server through a link in the video description. Follow me on Twitter at Mitten Squad. My name is Paul of Mitten Squad. Have a wonderful day.